you know on day one there's going to be a default. If someone is giving you a business plan and you expect to get paid back, that is not originated credit impaired. That's stage one. There's a difference.
That's why we got the advice. I think this
Yeah.
was the argument.
So your example is not credit impaired. Your example is a higher risk. But that's there's a difference. So when my mom bought those Greek bonds, she knew, well, it was considered you're not going to get back the full value. That is credit impaired. If I give loan to a risky client, if I've analyzed the loan and they gave me a business plan and I expect them to do it, that's stage one. It starts at a high point.
I think somebody told me that for all kind of credit transactions, because every decision is being made at a point in time, right? So the date the loan is being originated, the credit risk is actually reflected in the price.
Correct.
There onwards, we measure the changes.
I haven't seen an example of where you originate a loan credit impaired.
Not impaired, a high risk.
But that's not impaired.
Not
Originated impaired might be from a government. They know they're not going to get the money back. I think that would be a very unusual example. Normally, you buy loans that are impaired, but if you originate a loan, you wouldn't originate a loan if you don't have a hope of getting your money back. And what you do is you reflect it in the interest rate. Or government loan. The view we took at ADB is there's a different market rate for development banks and commercial banks. So they have a different interest rate that's their market. That's the view they took. It was a bit of a stretch, I thought. So they said the market rate to Pakistan was 3%. Because in dollars, their role is to lend infrastructure at a different, that's the market rate of like World Bank, ADB, Islamic Development Bank, those banks.
How about a business combination where you are taking over a portfolio of loans, a consumer portfolio, say by another bank, exiting the country or somewhat, in that case?
Those are purchased credit impaired.
Those you have to assess. Are they credit impaired or not?
Yeah, part of it.
Usually they are when you are going for a takeover or buyout.
Well, I would say purchase credit impaired implies there's a really hefty discount. So the IRR is unrealistic, and you know you're not going to get it back. And I think if you purchase a portfolio, you would still have to, I would think you'd have to look at it on a security by security. You wouldn't say the whole thing's impaired.
Not the whole thing. Like
there would be some. Yeah, if you purchase a portfolio, there would be some in stage 3, some in stage 1, and some in stage 2. I guess from your point of view, it would be stage 3 or stage 1. There's nothing on stage 2. Because if I bought it, it's either stage 1 or stage 3.
It could be because when they had originally classified it as...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they classified it. When you buy something on day 1, it cannot be stage 2.
You already have priced it at that...
It's either stage 1 or stage 3. It could go to stage 2 after you buy it only. It could go to stage 3 if it's impaired on day 1. It cannot be stage 2 because the stage 2 means the risk changed since you bought it. Since you just bought it, the risk couldn't have changed. So it has to be stage 1 or stage 3.
Just as an example, when the financial crisis happened in Europe, in Ireland, I know that what they did was they made a separate bank which took up all the toxic banks,
Correct.
toxic loans of all.
Correct.
Would that fall under this POCI category? Because that bank took over all the toxic loans of all the other banks in the country.
Yeah, well, they purchased loans that were credit impaired, yes, at deep discount. So that would be stage 3. And it was funded by the government, I think it was funded by the EU.
It was funded by the government of Ireland.
With loans from the EU, I think.
Yeah. They cleaned all the other banks.
I know.
Put it all in.
Yeah, they cleaned all the banks. Ireland did that, yes. So is this example here clear? So don't worry about stage 1 unless you work for a bank, right? Because you don't want to do that. You want to avoid it. Because your audit fees will go through the roof, right? Avoid it.
But the provision would be higher in simplified models.
Yes, but the headache, usually if you think about Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, HP, they don't give loans that are that long. And
No, we are discussing for lease receivables and contract with significant financing of.
that's like an IFRS 15. Hewlett Packard, I sold you a server, pay me over 3 years. You're better off to use lifetime losses on day one. You can do the staging, but most people don't because it's too much work. And usually the credit losses to companies like HP is not as significant because they're asset backed. They can, they're usually lower than a traditional bank, usually. So I have never seen someone use IFRS 15 and select to do stage 1. You can, but it's too much work, I think.
So Coke would not prepare the whole model.
No.
How will they get to that 0.3%?
They would do lifetime losses on everything. So they would basically they would separate between performing and non-performing, lifetime losses on everything.
They have to do the analysis customer-wise.
They would do it on a macro basis.
As a group, they will take all the.
Probably, yeah. Staging is only necessary when you do it on an individual basis.
So if there is no stage 1, then why is there 0.3% provision on current balance?
Well, that's lifetime. That's lifetime. Because some of the stuff that's in the current category will go bad. So basically what we're saying is, whenever you make a sale, you book a bad debt expense. Basically is what we're saying.
You do a flow to loss.
Do a what?
Flow to loss.
Yes.
Basically, all past dues were once current.
Correct. Correct. And generally, statistically, most of the current stuff gets paid, and as it goes down the buckets, the percentages go up. Up and up and up. So you'd estimate those based on historical trends, etc. Well, this is still expected loss as opposed to incurred. The difference is these are default, would be incurred, right? A change in risk is not incurred. It's a different model. Because IS 39 is, it's either default or not default. Whereas IFRS 9 is, it's more risk or default.
Well, I think even in IFRS 9, when we talk about probabilities, the probability of default, probability in itself is a measure of happening or not happening.
Correct.
Default or no default. Right? But on an historical data basis, you are analyzing
Correct.
that in history, for example, in 7 years, out of 10,000 loans or the obligors, how many defaulted? And that's the percentage.
Correct.
And you're applying that percentage in a forward-looking scenario.
Correct.
Adjusting it.
Exactly.
So my question here is, in your
But
practical
stage 3 is default.
stage 3 is different.
Period.
To some, I may be wrong in saying that, but I've heard some consultants saying this. Stage 3 is out of the scope of IFRS 9. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't put it like that, but I would put stage 3 is default, book the loss.
Yeah.
So I guess you could, that would be one way to summarize it. I wouldn't use those words because it's
I also don't want to use this word, but just to simplify this,
yeah,
because stage 3 is
there's a loss.
the prevailing regime.
You believe there's a loss, book the loss.
Yeah.
Exactly. So stage 3, there is a loss.
So
So
my question is different.
okay, go for it.
My question is, in your practical experience, while institutions implemented around the world, not in my country, when you look at these statistical models, right, accountants are not looking at these at this point of time, and they're not expected to. Right? How often there's an internal reliability issue or internal manipulation issue, because how this is going to work practically. There is a system which is not smart, which is not AI based, right? Which
No.
has been programmed historically,
Correct.
where considering the visibility of risk profiles at that point of time, the rating systems and all that. All this data either needs to be, in ideal scenario, smart enough to adjust to the changing scenario, or these models need to be vigilantly monitored by people having accounting as well as statistical understanding, and then they both have to go to the business to inform them, because actually this whole exercise will be on the table of a credit manager. Because when he will be writing a loan, he is the one who needs to understand all this before entering into a contract.
But most of your...
So how practically this has worked? There are business people considering things, there are models which needs to be monitored and updated, and there are accountants who have to maintain their books and ensure they reach to the bottom lines which please the shareholders. How this has happened?
Well, first of all, in the U.S., we haven't yet moved to the ECL model. It's next year. Because you want to beat the U.S., right?
So the first letter to State Bank should be...
Well, IFRS 9 was applicable earlier than U.S. GAAP. Because U.S. GAAP, the problem is this is a new thing that's very messy. So from a U.S. point of view, it's still the incur loss model right now. We haven't moved to this new model yet.
What about Middle East? They claim that they've implemented it. Europe, they claim that they've implemented it.
The Middle East has done it, yeah. But what I find is, I'm not sure how correct they've done it, is how I would put it.
This is what my question
Yeah, I don't think, you know, it's still early days. You still find, I mean, what I've seen is they will have their data analytics person say, I can justify these numbers. Someone at management puts a number on top of it that they can't justify, that they sit and argue with the auditors about. So what I've seen is there's a justified number and an unjustified number, and you bang them together. It's still early days. I mean, it only came into account last year, right?
So what if there is another subprime loan originating from the first quarter?
Well, the thing is...
Can you use the excuse it's early days?
They will.
Because currently the situation is neither the auditor, nor the consultant, nor the client, none of the people have a grip on it.
No, and I agree. Look, the reality is it's a complicated model that is highly subjective, that is scoped to be manipulated. Period.
And we are not dealing with angels.
No matter what you want to say, you know, especially when you get younger people on the course, they say, Mike, just show me how to get the number. It's like, well, it's not black and white, period. So I think what I've seen in the Middle East is so far is I don't really know how well they've done it.
There's definitely a bit of room for improvement.
But they are doing it quarterly or model validation.
Yeah, but it's not how they're doing it. It's not the frequency, it's the quality.
The sophistication of the model.
You know, I don't think, and you know, they bring in these outside consultants, and the problem with outside consultants is they don't understand your business as well as you do. And then your objective is to not have the loss so bad because you got to protect your profit. I think my answer there is I still think we're going through growing pains. It's messy. It'll be very interesting what happens in 2020 when the U.S. goes down its approach. It's not, I mean, I'm not a model expert, but they get these experts out there. But I don't care what kind of expert you are, you cannot predict these numbers accurately. It's like you get an actuary with pensions. The actuary has no clue about the next year's inflation. I don't care what they say, they have no idea. They give a model and say, here's my number, and the number next year is wrong. And then we have an actual gain or loss every year, because they're wrong every year. So we're putting this godlike view that these modeling people are going to give us the correct answer, which is nonsense. That's the reality. So I think what we're trying to do in accounting is make things better. And there's going to be many, many changes as the years go by. And this is not a perfect model. That's a good question, but I don't have a, I mean, it's a hard one to answer. You know, we think the model guy is going to give us the correct answer. Nonsense. If the model guy could give us the correct answer, he wouldn't work for us. He would be an investor on his own money, right? And he'd be super rich. Because if you could predict the future, why would you be working for the bank? You've got the wrong job. Work for a hedge fund. Become, you know, work with Bill Gross. Well, he's not doing very well now, I guess, but he was. So is this clear here? Okay. So we spoke about recycling. Now I want to just go back a little bit. So let's go back. Where were we? So we have a short break. All right. 15 minutes. American minutes. 5 minutes American. All right. No, 5 Pakistan minutes. I'll just take a short break.